Hello. I am Xiaoli Tang from Xi'an Jiaotong University. Very delighted to share with you our recent work, Residual-Conditioned Optimal Transport, towards structure-preserving unpaired and paired image restoration. In this work, we suggest modeling image restoration as an optimal transport or OT problem for both unpaired and paired settings, introducing the novel transport residual as a unique degradation-specific cue for both the transport cost and the transport map. Specifically, we propose a two-pass residual-conditioned optimal transport, or RCOT approach, in which the transport map is conditioned on the transport residual via a two-pass process. Extensive experiments on multiple restoration tasks show that RCOT achieves competitive performance in terms of both distortion measures and perceptual quality, restoring images with more faithful structures as compared with state-of-the-art methods. Image restoration holds a fundamental position in low-level computer vision, aiming to address the degradation, e.g., most commonly noise, blur, rain, haze, low light, in a degraded image. A direct way is to seek a restoration map T from the degraded image domain to the high-quality image domain. There are mainly two lines of works for image restoration. Deterministic models fit regression models by minimizing distortion measures such as MSE and L1 loss, while generative models often sample from the posterior distribution conditioned on the degraded input. Consequently, determinative methods often capture the average results of the potential target distribution, which is vulnerable to excessive smoothness and compromised structural details. And generation-based methods often use the degraded image as a condition without including specific information about the degradation, which can result in outputs with remaining distortions and inaccurate structural details. In this work, we model image restoration from an optimal transport, OT perspective, i.e., seeking the most efficient map that transports P to Q with a minimal transport cost. More crucially, we integrate the novel transport residual as a degradation-specific cue into the transport cost and transport map, leading to a structure-preserving OT map. As observed in Picture B, the RCOT produces a noise-free image with more faithful structures. So, here's a crash introduction to optimal transport theory. OT problem seeks the optimal transport map or transport plan to transform a distribution P to another distribution Q with minimal cost. The map T star attaining the infimum of equation 1 is called the OT map. Similarly, in equation 2, we have the OT plan pi star. The Kantorovich problem has the following dual form, which often leads us to a more manageable approach. Recently, OT has been presented as a powerful toolkit or framework for machine learning, especially in the field of generative models. A majority of generative models, such as WGAN, use OT cost as the loss for the generative network. Another line of works compute OT maps or plans for generative modeling, such as Neural OT in iClear 2023. So now let's see the proposed RCOT approach that introduces the transport residual as a degradation-specific cue for both the transport cost and transport map. We first model image restoration as an OT problem, exploiting the frequency patterns of the residual, yielding the fraud objective that measures the distance between the distribution of multi-domain degraded images and the clean ones. Then we condition the transport map by the residual embedding via the two-pass process. From this figure, we can observe that the degradation-specific residuals in the frequency domain are generally sparse, except for the noise case. In this sense, we add a residual penalty term in the transport cost, which is determined to be L1 regularizer on the Fourier residuals other than the noise case, while using L2 norm for denoising. Therefore, the fraught objective is defined as this equation, and the dual form of fraught can be accordingly expressed by this equation. Replacing the optimization of the first term over target X with an equivalent optimization over the map of interest T, we have the minimax problem in equation 4, where R hat represents the transport residual. We can prove that the solutions of the fraught provide OT maps. The details of the proof can be found in our paper. This proposition affirms the feasibility of solving the fraught minimax problem to acquire an OT map from P to Q. To tackle the minimax problem, we can adversarially train two neural networks T theta and phi omega. Then we design the transport map as a two-pass RCOT map. It contains an image generator and a residual encoder to encode the residual embeddings. In the two-pass process, the transport residual is computed by the base model in the first pass and then encoded as a degradation-specific embedding to condition the second pass restoration. This process is summarized as equation 6. Finally, with the parameterization of t theta and phi omega, the unpaired optimization objective function can be written as equation 9. And for the paired setting, we can leverage the paired samples to enforce t theta y to approximate the target x for any pair yx in P with a quadratic L2 loss. Now we look at some experimental results. For the denoising task, the proposed method achieves state-of-the-art performance in terms of numerical and visual results. We can observe from Figure 1 that RCOT produces results with better textural details. Then the deraining results of both synthetic and real-world data also demonstrate the superiority. For the dehazing results on real-world haze, we can observe that our results exhibit more faithful color, while deterministic methods such as prompt IR and Restormer produce results with distorted color. For the super-resolution task, the proposed RCOT outperforms the most recent generative methods. The qualitative gains of both distortion measures and perceptual quality are significant. Notably, even in the unpaired setting, the RCOT achieves the third-best performance in terms of the FID score. Particularly, our RCOT restores a sharp image with more realistic details. Last, we present some ablations. The first is the two-pass residual conditioning mechanism. We can see that the transport residual conditioning mechanism brings significant gains to our model in terms of both the quantitative and qualitative results. And for the component of loss, we find that the FROT objective shows decent performance, working alone and working with the L2 loss. To summarize, we propose the RCOT approach for image restoration, which introduces the transport residual as a degradation-specific cue into the OT framework. We control the transportation with a two-pass transport residual condition mechanism, and the RCOT tackles structure-preserving issues for multiple IR tasks. Thanks for watching.